Hello and welcome to the Arsenal Ramble, where today we're going to be discussing the Europa League draw against Sporting Lisbon. As always, I'm joined by my co-rambler Dom. How are you, mate? You all good?
I'm all good, thanks, Dave. I was actually quite excited to watch a Europa League game now that it's come back, just because there's not really as much pressure for us to perform. I mean, there's always pressure for us to put out a good performance, but there's not as much riding on this game. So after all of these really high pressure games and last minute winners, and when every single game in the Premier League feels like a cup final, it was actually quite nice to be able to watch an Arsenal game without that constant fear of we might drop points in this game, for example. So yeah, I was really looking forward to this game. And yeah, European competition, it's one that we've not won for a long time. So a good chance for us to see some of our players, which we haven't actually seen for a while, / not seen at all as regards to Kyrgios. So
Yeah.
how are you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, I'm all good, man. Yeah, I echo those same thoughts, to be fair. I was really looking forward to seeing Kivior for the first time. And yeah, I like these games just because, like you say, the pressure is off a little bit. I think we're so sort of not not burnt out, but the Premier League games are there's so much pressure, isn't there, on each and every fixture. 3 points is so crucial, and you know, I think the fan base is a little bit torn whether we go full force into Europa League or do we rotate a little bit. And I'm sort of on the fence a little bit with it, but I think whatever happens, I don't think I'll be ultimately that disappointed. However, like I say, it's nice to see the team rotate a little bit and see some faces, like you say, faces we haven't seen before, and see players like Smith Rowe get more minutes under his belt and things like that. But yeah, it's a really hard game to assess and describe, wasn't it? It was a fixture that sort of, because of the changes in the team, it we didn't really play the same way we normally play, did we?
No, we definitely set up a little bit differently. We had Kivior making his debut game for Arsenal, and the likes of Turner in goal as well. Means that we're changing 2 of 5 of our back line, and as we all know, Arsenal being quite focused usually on playing out from the back and starting all of our attacks from that area. To have 2 new players in, well, I mean, Turner's not new, but he's not as good as Ramsdale with his feet. To have 2 of the 5 be different personnel, it's always going to be a bit more of a struggle to try and kickstart our attacks and get our momentum going in the game. But yeah, it's always nice to have a bit of an audition for these players, so that if it comes down to it in the Premier League and Gabriel needs a rest or he gets injured, then potentially now, after Kivior's got some minutes in his belt, you're thinking it's not so much of a risk to be able to chuck him in there. So, yeah, what did you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was just nice to see Kivior get some minutes, really, wasn't it? It's I think Arteta was asked pre-game about whether it was the right game to throw him in, and whether he had confidence in him. And his response was something along the lines of, I've got trust in all my players. And we have to start him at some point. And I think today was as good a game as any, to be honest. I think he had an okay game. Couple of little bits that we'll come on to later, especially with their first goal. But no, I'm just happy to see him in the team. And there was some other changes as well with the 11, with Nelson back in the team. Obviously, still on a high, probably from the Bournemouth game. Do you think that was a deserving start for Nelson?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think when he scored that winner, it absolutely solidified his place in the starting 11 for this game, especially. So yeah, it's good to see that Nelson's getting some more minutes as well, and he's getting trusted in the latter stages of what is a European competition. So he's got to be pleased to come back from injury. get that massive winner at the end of the game at the weekend against Bournemouth, and then be starting in this fixture. So I'm really happy for Nelson. And to be honest, we didn't really have too many other options because of our recent injury to Trossard and Nketiah as well. So, and Jesus is also out. So I think it was forced. I mean, we could have maybe played Smith Rowe from the start, but as we see, he's not still at full fitness. So it made perfect sense to me to start Nelson in this game.
Yeah, that's something that I thought was going to happen. I thought Smith Rowe would have started. I thought he had some, he got a solid 30, 40 minutes in the game against Bournemouth, and I thought this would be the game where he maybe would start and then come off in the second half. But he opted with a front three of Saka, Nelson and Martinelli, with what looked to be Martinelli down the middle. I was hoping for a bit of a respite for Saka as well, but every time I think there's a game where Saka needs to get rested, Arteta still plays him. He just does not rest Saka, does he? He seems like he's indestructible. There's nothing that can knock Saka. But all in all, I think it was the sort of team sheet everyone was expecting. Maybe Tierney to play, but due to illness, it looks as if he didn't travel to Portugal. And obviously, there was sort of rumours that Jesus was on the plane and he travelled with the squad to Portugal. But it turns out that wasn't quite true, and he's still back at London Colney with the rest of the coaches. But who knows? It looks as if he's joined or is joining in certain training sessions with the team. So it looks like his reintroduction to the team could be fairly close now. And who knows? He may even be on the bench or a part of the weekend fixture against Fulham. Sorry. So yeah, there's obviously a lot of players out, but a lot of them look as if they're returning to fitness sooner rather than later.
Yeah, definitely. We've got a plethora of players that look like they're on the cusp of coming back and being able to bolster our attack. And as you say, Jesus is certainly one of them. And when I saw those pictures on Twitter, I think it was yesterday or the day before, of him in training, it really does look like he's not too far away from coming back into the fold, which is quite exciting, to be honest, especially when you see games like this. He might have been quite useful just for maybe 30 minutes or so as a bit of extra firepower to try and get the edge over Sporting. But as you say, coming weeks, he should be coming back. Smith Rowe looks like he's almost at full fitness, and potentially at the weekend against Fulham might be able to start that game, as he's had quite a bit of rest in this game. But apart from that, I was pretty happy with the team sheet today.
Yeah, and even players like Trossard, who obviously have got the groin injury at Bournemouth, it looks as if that's not as serious as first feared. Just looks like a 2 or 3 weeker. So that's obviously not as long term as it could have been. So that's another positive for Arsenal. But I think that's the team sheets sort of all dealt with. Should we get straight into the team? Sorry, not the team. The action. So it was a little bit of a slow start for Arsenal, I thought. For the first 5 or 10 minutes, we just sort of looked a little bit cagey. But it's what's to be expected from a team that's had 5 or 6 new players integrated in there. So Goncalves went close early on. What were your initial thoughts with the first sort of 10, 15 minutes? Was you a little bit worried?
Yeah, I was actually. Sporting, they didn't really pay Arsenal the respect that we're used to seeing in the Premier League. We see a lot of teams. Caveat to what I'm about to say, apart from the Bournemouth really fast start, a lot of teams in the Premier League kind of back off Arsenal at first, don't they? They show us a little bit of respect because of how we've blown them away so well recently. Then they kind of have to earn the right to play in each game. Whereas Sporting, to be fair to them, they came out the blocks and they really showed what they were about, and they did put us under pressure pretty much straight away, and it was quite a scrappy game, especially in the first half. There was a lot of defensive errors, turnovers of the ball, players breaking through. And we're just not used to seeing that with how much control and possession that we've had in pretty much every Premier League game we've played this season. We've had most of the ball. So, yeah, a bit of a different kind of style of play for Arsenal. But as you say, it could be just because of the different personnel maybe. But, yeah.
Yeah, just a little bit shaky, wasn't it? But then we started to come into it a little bit more. And on the 20th minute, we get a corner. Vieira whips in a beautiful ball, actually. And sort of Saliba just calmly slots it away towards the lower down towards the left. It was like I say, a brilliant delivery, but it was awful defending from Sporting, to be fair. It was just an absolute free header. For Big Saliba. Nice to see him back on the score sheet again. And it looks like there was a few tussles after the goal went in as well. There was Zinchenko and Xhaka involved, and in the end, it looked as if one of them got a booking. I think it was Zinchenko. I'm not really sure what for. What were your thoughts on the goal?
Well, when we first got Saliba back into the Arsenal team at the start of the season, I was expecting to see this kind of goal from him probably, every 5 or 6 games. I thought he would be a real threat from set pieces, almost like Van Dijk-esque when he was at his heights at Liverpool. And we've not really seen that much this season. I think he got a couple early in the season, most notably one which was with his foot from outside the box, which, wow, that was a good goal. But I was expecting to have a lot more aerial threat from Saliba, especially from corners. And it was a great goal, to be honest. I think, as you say, it was because of Sporting giving him basically a free header unchallenged in the middle of the box. But you've still got to get up there. You still got to get it on target and beat the keeper. And he did absolutely that. So, really good goal.
Yeah. But then almost 10, 15 minutes later, they essentially equalise, from a corner of their own. And this was quite a peculiar one because it was hard to really describe what went wrong. I think what ultimately happened was a bit of miscommunication between Turner and Kivior. It looked as if maybe Turner shouted me. I think if you're a pro lip reader, you might need to help me out here. But I could have sworn he shouted me, and that's sort of the reason why Kivior almost looks as if he ducked out of it at the last second. It just looked like one of those really, but it was a real shame really because to go one ahead when we were sort of a little bit under pressure, to equalise in that sort of manner was disappointing, and we are starting to concede a fair few goals from set pieces. I've noticed recently, but it's hard to really pinpoint why.
Yeah, well, as you say, I think there's a multitude of different things that actually led to this goal. As you say, being a pro lip reader, if he has shouted me, then as a goalkeeper, you should know better than to shout me. You should be shouting keepers. If you're gonna come and claim the ball, you've got to shout keepers, clear and concise, so everybody knows that that's who's going for the ball. Because if there's 6 or 7 players around, and me could be anyone. And also there could be a Lisbon player shouting me, and then, oh yeah, Same, yeah, you get the ball. No, you've got to say, or Turners or something, just to make it clear. But as we said, these are 2 players which haven't played together ever in the first starting 11, Turner and Kiwior. So that's going to be an issue. That's going to be an issue anyway. And you get the idea that if it's Ramsdale and Gabriel, then Ramsdale would put his name on it and Gabriel would say you'd move out the way and let him claim it. So, maybe some teething problems for the relationship at the back. But it is frustrating that we're starting to concede from set pieces because this is something we've been so good at doing all season. Up until this last 6 to 8 weeks or so, we were in the top 3 stats, I think, for being able for not conceding these set pieces. And we've just dropped off massively, and I really don't know why or what's happened. But yeah, it is a bit frustrating to be conceding a similar kind of goal in quite quick succession from different games. It's almost like they're not highlighting it on the training ground and saying this is where we go wrong and this is how we can improve.
Yeah, it's really hard to understand why, isn't it? Because in the first half of the season, not only will we not conceding many goals from set pieces, we were also scoring plenty of goals from set pieces. It seemed like that set piece coach that we got in was really working miracles, and it was a big part of why we were racking up the points, I think. So yeah, it is a strange one, but I think this one just has to go down to a little bit of rustiness. I think Turner, did show signs of rustiness in other areas of his game. There was a moment where he sort of hesitated on, kicking it out, didn't he? And almost gave them a 2-1 lead at that moment in the game. So it wasn't the only moment that Turner was showing that. But again, in his defence, it's to be expected. He isn't playing week in, week out. He's not able to gain confidence in the form of matches. So it's kind of to be expected, and that's the sort of the sacrifice that you have to make in these Europa League games. That not all of your players are getting fresh minutes, especially not a keeper, because it's not the position where you're heavily rotating. Like a Tomiyasu, for example, is going to be in and out the team. He'll play in different positions. He can play left back, he can play centre back. He's going to get minutes all throughout the team. But Turner is in that position where he's very rarely going to come on and play, to be honest. So when he does come in, he needs to be on it and sharp. And don't think we saw that today.
Yeah, I tend to agree. But then at the same time, I think if you're going to have a number 2 keeper and you make it clear to that player that they are going to be the number 2, then they need to make sure that they are on it. They need to be prepared for when they're going to get this moment. Turner, there's no chance that Turner, unless Ramsdale gets an injury, there's no chance that Turner's going to be our number 1 in the Premier League. So he needs to be focused on a game like this. He would have had all the preparation ahead of this game. Arteta would have made it clear to him, look, you're going to be playing in the first leg because you've not had minutes. So he would have known that he's going to be playing this game for quite a while. So he should be on it to be able to start this game. But yeah, I just don't think he's not as progressive as Ramsdale with his feet. And as we saw with that weird pass straight to their forward who, well, he just fluffed it up, really, didn't he? He could have quite easily scored that, but we got away with it in that moment. But yeah, he's more than competent when it comes to shot stopping, almost Bernd Leno-esque, but at the same thing, Leno couldn't kick, but neither can Turner.
Yeah, and I mean, we know he can do it to a degree as well in terms of putting in solid performances, because we saw it at the World Cup for the USA national team. He hadn't played a great deal of football for Arsenal, and he went to an international huge tournament and played really well, and actually got a lot of plaudits over there. It was probably one of the better keepers of the tournament. So we know he can still produce performances despite that lack of match fitness. So I'm hoping it's just a one-off. And like you say, his footwork is the area he needs to improve on. He admitted that himself when he first came to Arsenal. It's not something that we're not aware of. And again, in the World Cup, I thought he was all right with his feet. I think he did pretty well with a lot of situations. So hopefully, yeah, just one game, and yeah, hopefully he can play a little bit better in the home fixture.
That
Okay,
was
so
something I was
moving
going to
on.
ask you.
Okay.
Sorry, I was going to say to you, after today's performance, would Turner be your number 1 in the home leg?
Yeah, he would, because I don't think it was diabolic, by any stretch. I think he just had a little bit of miscommunication with the player playing his first minutes for Arsenal. Um, and that's all it was. It's just one little moment, yeah. And then he's got a few of the little shaky moments. But it's football; these things can happen. Like we
Mm.
said at the start of the podcast, the pressure is off to a degree. It's not as pressurized as the Premier League, where 3 points is crucial week in, week out. We've got the home fixture, so I think he deserves to be able to not put it right, because it's not to that stretch, but I think it would be silly to drop him after that performance, because what's that going to do for your confidence? If you imagine his mental state after that, it wouldn't be great. So yeah, I'd still be playing him in the home fixture next week for sure.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, so moving on to a little bit later, and it's something I want to talk about, because I found it quite comical. And what I'm referring to is the moments towards the end of the half where Martinelli was booked for slapping the ball out of, or trying to slap the ball out of the keeper's arm, but in fact it was actually Granit Xhaka who was the one that did that. It reminded me of all those years ago when I think it was Oxlade-Chamberlain got the card for Gibbs, or it might have been the other way around. I can't even remember. Um, but even VAR looked at this and deemed all was fine. So I just found it so comical, and it sort of echoed the performance of the referee in this game, because it seemed as if he just didn't have a clue.
Yeah, I think it was all those years ago. I think Oxlade-Chamberlain saved the ball off the line with his hand, didn't he? He like put his head towards the ball and tried to make out that he was heading it, but he just kind of saved it with his hand.
Yeah,
And
that's it.
then Kieran Gibbs got sent off, didn't he? but
Yeah, yeah,
in the days of, if that was in VAR, they would have overturned it and changed the personnel. It'd be interesting actually to see what would happen nowadays if that same scenario
mm,
played out. But yeah, it was quite comical to see Martinelli look really animated, didn't he? When he was shown the
yeah,
yellow card, like what did I do? Like I'm not sure what happened, but I think because Martinelli and Granit Xhaka have got similar kind of skin fades, then maybe the referee got confused. He didn't bother looking at the names or the numbers on the back of the shirt. He just had a look and said, "Yeah, that's Martinelli. He can have a yellow." But yeah, just a bit of a funny moment, wasn't it? And wasn't a
yeah.
yellow for me.
No, and to be fair, if I'd rather have one player on a yellow card, it would be Martinelli over Xhaka. So we kind
Yeah,
of benefited out of it in a weird sense. But yeah, I just found that, honestly, I just it's a bit baffling, the fact that VAR looked at it and still thought, that was fine. You carded the right player when you clearly didn't. But anyway, so that was pretty much the first half in a nutshell. It was just a half where it looked as if we were playing like we'd made six changes, and that was sort of my initial assessment at halftime. We were a little bit rusty, showing signs of some good bits and bobs here and there, but ultimately there was a lot of sloppiness and just not quite in the right gear, I would say. Um, at half time, we obviously didn't make any substitutions. We come out, and I think we started the half pretty well. Almost straight away within the first 10 minutes, we're having chance after chance. In my notes here, we've got Martinelli going through, and he tries that little chip, doesn't he, on the keeper? And the keeper actually did really well. He got a good hand to it, and I think on another day that could go in. Um, Moments later, Vieira has a speculative shot from outside the box, and it just goes wide of the far post. And then I think there's a few more chances as well that I've not quite made notes of, but we were really piling on the pressure in that first half, weren't we? in the
Yeah,
second
yeah.
half. Sorry.
Start of the second half, we really were piling on the pressure, and it's almost like Arteta gave him a bit of a kick up the arsenal at half time to say, get back out there and actually create some
Yeah.
chances because you're better than this team. So that Vieira one was actually, it was a lot closer than I thought at first thought. I thought maybe he really dragged it past the post, but for a snapshot, literally not much time to set up, doesn't have much of a run onto it or anything, no backlift, to be generating that kind of power and accuracy is quite impressive, to be honest. So it's good to see that he's got that in his locker, but it was obviously a shame that it were just whiskered past the post. But yeah, we were really piling on the pressure and looking for that goal to put us into the lead.
Yeah. While we're on Vieira, what did you think of his performance? Because this was a game where all my eyes were on him personally. I really wanted to see how he did, because we'd not seen a whole heap of Vieira since his arrival at Arsenal. And this just felt like a game where there was a point to prove. He played in Xhaka's position at the weekend against Bournemouth. Did okay, I thought, did pretty well. And I thought, could this be a game where he builds on that and really elevates his game and starts proving to Arteta why he should be starting? But yeah, what were your thoughts on Vieira today?
So I was actually doing the similar thing to you. I was quite focused on Vieira, but for a different reason, more for the fact. So Aaron Ramsdale the other day, he did an interview. I'm not sure who it was with, but they were asking him to say one-word answers of like a descriptive word of players, and they were naming the players. And he was giving like a word. So like for Ben White, he said tan, for example. And it got to Vieira, and he said teabag, and I thought teabag. What's it about teabag for? But then it clicked. It's from the film Longest Yard. Is it Longest Yard?
It's from Prison Break. It's from Prison Break.
Is it? Prison Break. That was it. Not well. They're both in a prison, aren't they? So forgive me. But yeah, he looks just like him, doesn't he? Like a younger version. Every time I was looking at him, I was thinking, it's teabag. but yeah, go back to football just for a second, because it's a football podcast. he did look a lot more impressive to me, Vieira. It wasn't like he was shying away from the game. Like sometimes in the Premier League, he tends to hide because of the physicality. He doesn't want to get on the ball as much, but he was definitely demanding the ball more. Kind of taking on that Odegaard role quite well, and started creating, passing the ball nicely. And I don't know if a part of it is the fact that he's come to Portugal. This is the league that he was from before, so he knows this kind of team inside out, and maybe wants, has a point to prove and wants to stake a claim and say, like, this is the team I'm at now and how far I've come, kind of thing. But yeah, I was quite impressed with Vieira's performance.
Yeah, me too, to be fair. I thought it was a little bit similar to the Bournemouth game where he just sort of quietly went about his business, did pretty well. I think there's still clear signs of areas to his game that can be developed. You mentioned it earlier with his physicality. I think at times he does get shrugged off the ball a little bit too easy, and can show signs of strength a little bit more. Similarly to how Martinelli's adapted over the years, because when he first were in the team, he was a very slender player, and he would often get brushed aside easily. But he's obviously bulked up a lot more, and that has benefited his game, in my opinion. So I think if Vieira can follow in Martinelli's footsteps there, and they're best mates, so he can give him some tips. But yeah, I think his game was pretty good, to be fair. And yeah, I think overall I was pretty happy with it.
Yeah, well,
But then,
the best. Sorry to interject there. They're saying they're best mates, but apparently Portuguese from Portugal is a lot different to Brazilian Portuguese, because they were asking Martinelli these questions pre-game, because obviously Vieira had a sore throat, so he couldn't go into the press conference, saying like, "Oh, did you take Vieira under your wing when he first when he first joined you guys?" And he was saying that there was a bit of an issue of communication because of the language barrier kind of thing. And it's like, well, you both speak Portuguese, so how can there be a language barrier? But it must have been this Portuguese, Portuguese, or what? I don't know. I'm getting my tongue twisted. But basically, it's a bit different. So, every day's a school day.
Yeah. But yeah, I think they've clearly got some sort of little bromance going, haven't they? They're always together, always celebrating together, aren't they? It's quite cute. But moments later, we obviously tragically go 2-1 down. And this was essentially sort of just a low-driven shot, saved by Turner initially, but sort of spilled straight into the feet of Paulinho to slot home. It's a difficult one to assess for me. The only thing I would say is, could we have reacted a little bit better to Turner spilling that out? Because we had two men, I think it were Saliba and Ben White, that needed to just be a little bit more alert for that rebound. And but yeah, what were your thoughts on this goal?
Yeah, to be honest, I think you can't criticize too much, because it is like a real pinball in there, isn't it? It's whizzing about the box rapidly, and it just falls so kindly to their attacker, Paulinho, as you say. And to be fair to him, his reaction times to be able to get a toe onto that was pretty rapid. So you got to give him credit to be able to finish that, because a lot of players that would have just fizzed past them. So I think where we should have stamped the threat out was even before that ball came in. I think we had 4 or 5 players that were stood quite flat in a line, and nobody reacted to the runner that was running in behind. Then he basically got a free run and was able to put that cross in. And as you say, pinballed that back to Paulinho, who then just had a tap in. So I think the chance was created from the run that was initially made. And from then on, you're going to be clutching at straws to be able to try and defend that and clear it.
Yeah, it was just too easy for him, wasn't it? You can't concede goals to. I mean, it was a smart run, but a run nonetheless that could very easily be tracked by the man closest. So yeah, and like you say, they were all just so rigid in a line. There's probably even more than 5, maybe six players in a row, just sort of static. So a little bit of a switch off moment again there. But yeah, like you say, once that shot gets taken, Turner does well to make the save, but couldn't help but place it in the path of Paulinho.
Yeah, I would just say it was quite interestingly in that pocket of space that Gabriel would normally be marshalling. It's not to say that Kiwior did much wrong in that moment, but you would think that maybe Gabriel would have been barking orders at players to say, look, you track that player, they're running behind, or I'm going to go, you cover me, sort of thing. Whereas Kiwior was more watching the players around him and just being more reactive than proactive. And that's something that's going to come with more experience. But maybe he just needed a bit of a shout from Saliba to say, look, that your man's crossing, so you need to track him. But yeah, that was just one little observation I made.
Yeah, definitely. It kind of, for me, made me really appreciate Gabriel. I think sometimes it goes under the radar a little bit as a centre back, but he is so crucial to our back line, Gabriel. Him and Saliba, just honestly the best partnership in the Premier League, without a doubt for me. And yeah, it's no slight on Kiwior, but it was a big loss, I think, having Gabriel missing in there. And you could even see it when he came on later in the second half. He just looked so much more composed, and everything just seemed so much more secure and safe. Yeah, I think he was a big miss. But moments later, I was getting flashbacks to a Chelsea game of 2 years ago where Martinelli essentially ran the full length of the pitch, made Kante slip over, um, but this time just couldn't quite finish. Goes one-on-one with the keeper, but his touch just goes a little bit heavy towards the right, doesn't it? And allowed the Sporting defenders to get back and clear it. But
Mm.
what a great run from Martinelli that was.
Yeah, it started about 15 yards inside our own half. He manages to spin a player, and then he's caught between two or three players. And then he just suddenly pops out with the ball, and I was thinking, "Oh God, well, it's going to get cut out by the last centre back." And then he nicks it from him as well. I'm thinking,
Mm.
"Oh wow, he's through on goal here. Martinelli's rapid. We're going to get an easy, well, an opportunity at least on goal." But for anybody that plays FIFA. We all know that the very cheap centre back who's got over 94 pace or whatever stupid is St. Juste from Sporting Lisbon. And he absolutely motored his way back. If you actually watch the clip back, he started so far behind Martinelli. And this guy's absolutely rapid. And he was in everyone's team on FIFA. But he managed to cut out the chance. But what I think Martinelli probably should have done is taking the shot a bit earlier, just like he did in that Chelsea game where he managed to get the shot off, because there was an opportunity when he was just getting towards the box where he could have maybe just hit it, let it fly, but he went for the approach to go around the keeper, which he does do, and he manages to get round him. But for a bit of a dodgy touch, then the chance is gone, and St. Juste, the rapid centre back, manages to get. It was a bit of a risky one to make, because if he doesn't connect with the ball there, he's got 2 feet off the ground. He could have got himself sent off, but he really did time that quite well, didn't he? So just got to say, good defending. But yeah,
Was good defending, but helped by obviously with the poor touch. Yeah, I'm the same as you. I wish he just took that shot that one stage further before. As the keeper was coming out, he could have just bent it round him. Easy to say in hindsight, though, isn't it? And I'm sure he was absolutely blowing having to run the full length of the pitch. So it's a shame though, because that would have been a great goal. But luckily, almost 4 or 5 minutes later, we get a freak goal, a large slice of luck. As Xhaka tries to play in Martinelli, it hits their defender and just sort of curls into the corner. Slice of luck that we sort of needed, really, wasn't it?
I think that was 100% calculated by Xhaka. He's aimed for the back of the player to bounce it. Well, the thing that I'd say to that is you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And he had a dig, and he got a bit of luck, and it went in. And sometimes, if things aren't going for you, you need something just to pull out the bag and get a goal. It was a very cheap goal for us to get. It's not a goal that we're used to getting, that kind of spawny goodness. But yeah, I was obviously buzzing, and it was a bit overshadowed after we'd scored, because there was a VAR check, maybe Bukayo Saka fouling the player for us to then get the ball to Xhaka. And I actually thought this one probably could have, I'm not sure about should have, but could have been chalked off. I thought maybe we got a bit of good fortune in that, but as you say, it could have gone either way.
Yeah, if that was Premier League VAR, that was definitely getting chalked off. There just seems to be a massive difference between VAR and in Europe and in the Premier League. I don't understand why, to be honest. But yeah, we really did get pretty fortuitous with that. And there's not much more to read into it, really, is there? Just a huge slice of luck, and one that I'm pretty thankful for, because ultimately we could be looking at a 2-1 defeat here, and then a little bit of a mountain to climb. Well, not a mountain, but a tougher task, essentially at home. Whereas a 2-2 draw, is not the end of the world. I even saw the pundits on BT Sport talking about, would you have taken this before half time? And it was sort of a debate to be had around that. I don't think we would have, to be honest. But it just goes to show that it isn't the worst result. We have got the home advantage now. It's a shame we don't have away goals anymore, because that would have been nice. Um, but I think ultimately a 2-2 result is probably a fair result on the night. Maybe they were a little bit more deserving of something more. But it was a really odd game, chances at both ends. And it sort of felt as if we sort of played ourselves out of it almost.
I completely agree, and I do think that if there wasn't a second leg to this tie, then we really would have gone for it a lot more in the last 10 minutes. It looked like
Mm,
there was instruction from Arteta from the 80th minute. Really, was to not give the ball away, try not to concede any chances, because ultimately, in a European tie like this, where you don't have away goals or anything like that, if you can win your away leg, if you can not lose your away leg, and then you go back to the second leg being at home, then it's a lot easier to be able to win the tie then, because you've basically got a level playing field, and all you have to do is outdo your opponent in one game, which you're playing at home. So I
mm,
do think there was instruction from Arteta: don't overstretch, don't leave any gaps at the back,
yeah,
because they were countering us quite often, especially in the first half. So yeah, I think we
yeah.
were just seeing it out, seeing the draw out, and then I think Arteta will probably make a few changes in that second leg. Bring in, maybe start Gabriel, start Partey, and then if we do have the likes of Jesus back, we might be having him in the fold as well,
Mm,
to be able to play that game as well. So yeah, I was quite happy with the 2-2 in the end. I thought we underperformed, they probably overperformed, and it's not an awful result. You just need to make sure you don't lose these games. And
mm,
ultimately as well, if we were to have lost the game, then you don't know how that might have affected the momentum in terms of the league form, because yes, they're separate competitions, but these guys, they're human, so they're going to carry any kind of demotivating factor into the next game, aren't they? So yeah, it was important
mm.
really for in terms of the tie, and in terms of all of the mental attitudes for the players.
Yeah. Like you say as well, towards the end, like maybe last 10, 15 minutes, you could just sense really that they weren't pushing for it, couldn't you? You could see that, they weren't going to throw men at it like we did at Bournemouth. It wasn't the be all and end all. 2-2 result away from home is a pretty solid result, um, and is not to be sniffed at. So ultimately, they were happy to take that one and hopefully win the second fixture. So yeah, all in all, not too bad. Another slight little positive as well is the fact that their midfielder Morita and their captain Coates had an accumulation of yellow cards, and therefore miss the returning fixture at the Emirates. And obviously, like I say, one being their captain, that's could be a nice little advantage for us.
Yeah, yeah, could be an advantage for us, but again, I think we can't focus too much on them and how they set up. I think ultimately we've definitely got the tools to be able to beat this team, especially at home in the second leg. And if we have a little bit of an edge because they're missing those players, then that's great. But yeah, I think we should be able to turn them over, even if we get a like a really basic 1-0 to the Arsenal. I'll be happy just to cruise through to the next
Yeah.
round, because this competition, it's great to have the two legs, because you're getting minutes for players that don't usually get minutes in the league. It was a real shame today that we didn't manage to get Tierney some minutes, because we all love
Yeah.
Tierney, and with all the rumours going around with him potentially leaving in the summer, it would have been nice for him to maybe put the Arsenal shirt on, make a really good performance, and be able to, play himself back into some form, and maybe put him in Arteta's mind. But yeah, that was a bit of a shame
Mm.
that he didn't manage to get any minutes. But yeah, we'll roll on to. Is it next week we're playing the second leg, or is there 2 week intervals now?
I'm pretty sure it's next week. I'm not 100% though, to be honest. But yeah, I think the games are coming thick and fast, so I'm pretty sure it is next week. But obviously, we've got the big fixture in the Premier League before then,
Ooh.
away at Craven Cottage against Fulham on the Sunday at 2 o'clock. Um, so obviously, back to the Premier League grind, back to the typical starting 11 that we probably all know and love. um, so, but who knows? We could even have a Jesus back on the bench. So that's something to maybe look forward to. Who knows? But yeah, do you think we'll just go back to that same that 11 then, that there won't be any? I guess it depends on injuries as well. If we don't always know, do we? If anyone's picked up a slight niggle.
No, I think, like, assuming we don't have any injuries, then we'll probably have the same starting 11 that we did against Bournemouth. But I think, as you say, Trossard, he may or may not be back. So I think we're looking at probably a Martinelli, Saka, and then either Smith Rowe or Nelson on the left. Um,
Mm.
but that's pretty much all our choices at the minute, isn't it? So,
Yeah,
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 it's good that we've got these players for rotation. It's good that Nelson, who was like the forgotten man after his injury, is now come back in. He made a really good contribution in the league. Wasn't as electric tonight, but he wasn't awful either. So that's always a positive to have on his record. And yeah, I think we'll definitely start with a very strong team at Craven Cottage.
yeah. I think so too. Yeah. I've just double checked as well, and the return fixture at the Emirates for against Sporting Lisbon is on Thursday, the 16th of March. Yeah, so it's not too far away. And we have also got the international break coming up as well, which normally this comes at a time that just doesn't quite benefit us. But to be honest, this one actually comes at a pretty good time, I think, because it just allows our players that aren't quite match fit just that little bit of time to get um well, essentially fit behind closed doors back at London Colney, and then hopefully when everything all resumes again, then we've got a fully fit, fully firing Smith Rowe and Jesus and Trossard. You know, it's tantalising really to think that we could have all these players fully fit after the international break.
Yeah, yeah. It's almost like it's a decent time for us to have this international break as well, isn't it? Just to have a few, like a week or so with not playing any games, just give us
Mm,
some time to rest and recuperate some of our players and get them back. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to
yeah.
getting all those guys back, and hopefully we don't have any of our internationals get injured whilst on international break, because that's
Mm.
something we've also got to look out for as well.
Yeah, that's so true. I saw that Ghana had called up Partey, and my heart was a little bit like,
No,
no.
don't do it.
Why? Okay, I think we've pretty much gone through everything in today's game against Sporting Lisbon. Is there anything that you want to add, or is that everything?
Yeah, a little bit off topic actually, but I just want to give a massive shout out to Tottenham Hotspur for going another season trophyless. It's quite an impressive stat, but you've got to give credit where it's due, and also how funny it is that players like Richarlison, who is one of my on my something list, along with the likes of Anthony. Um, he threw his toys out the pram after they got knocked out. Did you see him? He was swearing, saying how
Mm,
bad the season they've had, that he didn't like Conte and how he wasn't picking him. And
yeah,
it's just lovely to see them in turmoil. And us, if you
yeah.
could ask any Arsenal fan, can you envision a perfect season? It would be Arsenal top of the league and Spurs being in absolute turmoil, having a trophyless season. And lo and behold, it's happening.
It's so true, isn't it? It seems like Conte just doesn't want to be there as well. It's like they've got a manager that doesn't want to manage you. It's just it's just really awkward, and it's going to be so funny to see how it unfolds as well. Um, who they get, it's it's just, yeah, it's just great to see, isn't it? After all these years of well, I say years, but after us, them ridiculing us for finishing above us for so many seasons in a row, it feels as if St Totteringham's day is going to come, maybe in a couple of weeks. We couldn't be far away from mathematically finishing above them. It's going that bad for them. So absolutely great to see. Okay, well, I think that brings an end to today's podcast. So, as we said earlier, the next one is going to be the Fulham game on Sunday. So I think the podcast will go out a little bit later in the evening on Sunday. So please do join us for that one. But until next time, take care.
Catch you next time.